Life, like software, can be debugged, rewritten, and optimized. After 20 years of coding software, I recoded my life. That journey defined wellness for me. A calm nervous system, steady blood sugar, trust in the body, and doing what you love. This season, I'll walk you through that transformation. In future seasons, I'll be joined by guests to deepen the conversation. In today's episode, I'll take you into the start of my nutrition path and what turned into my crash course in sugar. I'm Mary Toscano, and this is Coding Wellness. In the last episode, I talked about how teaching has always been a part of me, woven through everything I've done. From teaching physics in college to giving talks at engineering conferences to performing on stage and pushing boundaries in Toastmasters. All of those experiences were training for the chapter that was about to begin. In this episode, I'll take you down the nutrition path, where my focus shifted to figuring out what was going on with my blood sugar and the surprising crash course I gave myself to learn it. Okay. So here I am, starting nutrition school, and I am excited out of my mind. I sat in the front row every class, raising my hand every 5 minutes. I would have hated having me in class. I was so annoying, but I just couldn't wait to learn this material. You have to understand, I grew up in Massachusetts on SpaghettiOs, SpaghettiOs with meatballs, hamburger helper, iceberg lettuce. All of my vegetables came from a can. Smushy asparagus, peas and carrots. The only potatoes I ever had were those small round ones in a can. Ugh, yuck. I used to hold my breath and choke them down. They were horrific. I had no idea a potato could actually taste good. My favorite sandwich was bologna and mayonnaise. Also, fried egg sandwiches with ketchup. I also loved Pop-Tarts swimming in margarine and covered in piles of sugar on top, just sloshing around. And then all the cereals, Apple Jacks, Fruit Loops, Captain Crunch, Lucky Charms, Count Chocula, and all the snacks, Big Wheel, Suzy Q's, Devil Dogs, cupcakes. That was my diet growing up. I didn't learn how to cook growing up. My mother did all of it. So when I went to college, I went straight to the dining commons, and by the end of the 4 years, I had gained 30 pounds. And of course, after college, I still didn't know how to cook. I'd walk into a grocery store, look around, and then just walk right back out because I didn't even know what to buy. So I ate out every single meal, and I gained even more weight. I got so fat. I looked like fat Elvis. Really, because I have a small frame and it all went to my face. I was fat Elvis with mood swings. Because what was also happening is I was getting these really high highs and really low lows. My moods were all over the place, up and down and up and down. And heaven forbid you were around me when I was low blood sugar. It was dangerous to be around me. I remember my ex, all I had to do was say, I'm hungry. And he knew if he didn't get me food within minutes, his life was in danger. I'm not even being dramatic. I was scary. One time we were on a 5-lane highway in the far left lane. All I said was, I'm hungry. And I watched him immediately cut across all 5 lanes to get to the exit and find me food. He knew firsthand what was coming, and it wasn't pretty. So I really wanted to figure out what was going on with my blood sugar. Why was I getting these awful mood swings when I did not eat sweet things? I never ate candy, cakes, or cookies. Nothing I ate even tasted sweet. So that was the number one reason I was going to nutrition school, to figure out what was going on with my blood sugar so I wouldn't be such a menace to society. I also wanted to learn how to cook. I had lost the weight I gained in college by going on the Scarsdale diet, basically starving myself on less than 1,000 calories a day. To keep it off, I tried to learn to cook, but the recipes were long and complicated and I didn't have the patience, so I gave up. and I went back to my old ways, which at the time I actually thought were healthy, like eating salads all the time, or bagels without cream cheese, or pretzels instead of chips. Oh my God, so many pretzels. So I really wanted to learn how to make healthy food. And my other goal in nutrition school was to learn what the hippies knew. After college, I landed in Santa Cruz, California, hippie capital of the world, especially in the 80s. If you wanted a throwback to the 60s, you came to Santa Cruz. Tie-dye, patchouli, VW buses, and hippies everywhere. Even the grocery stores were different. Sure, there were some regular supermarkets, but a lot of them were these hippie grocery stores. They had all these different kinds of vegetables, most of which I'd never seen or heard of before, and I wanted to know what they were. I also wanted to know all that stuff in the bulk section where you'd scoop food into bags. 90% of it, I had no idea what it was. I mean, I knew what rice was, well, at least one kind of rice. That's it. And then along the wall, they had all these jars of dried herbs. And I didn't know what 100% of those were. So I wanted to know what the hippies knew. I wanted to learn what was going on with my blood sugar. I wanted to learn how to cook. And I just wanted to feel better. I was taking antacids every day like they were candy. My hair was falling out and my bones were creaking. I could feel myself on the aging fast track. And I was only in my 30s. So every day in nutrition school was exciting for me. I hung on every word the teacher said. Then a few months in, I was asked if I would teach nutrition to 6th and 7th graders at a Santa Cruz middle school for 2 weeks, an hour a day, as a favor to the teacher. I said yes, but only if I could focus on sugar. I really wanted to understand sugar, and I knew the best way to learn it was to teach it. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into. On the first day, I gave my talk like it was an engineering class, and quickly realized teaching kids is a completely different world. Some kids were on their phones. Some girls were even putting on their makeup. And a few boys had so much energy they couldn't sit still, pushing each other and distracting everyone around them. It was a whole different environment than nice, compliant adults. And I thought, okay, what I'm doing here is clearly not going to work with these kids. I had to figure out a way to harness their energy and use it for good. Otherwise, I'd be pouring my heart out and nobody would be listening. This was a whole other level of teaching I had no experience with. And at the same time, I had to learn the material I was teaching. Sugar, insulin, carbohydrates, diabetes. Back then, nobody had explained it simply. It was just masses of overwhelmingly complicated information you had to wade through. Normally, I'm good at that. I love taking complicated stuff and making it simple. But this was a lot. It felt like you had to be a biochemist to understand it. And then there was the physiology. What's happening with the organs, the pancreas, the kidneys, the liver? I knew none of that. I was learning in real time, then turning around and trying to make it simple enough for a room full of kids who could barely sit still. That was one of the hardest 2 weeks of my life. Every day was hard, and there was no break. I couldn't just wake up and say, I don't feel like doing this. I had to do it. I had to face those kids with all their attitude and energy. Every morning I told myself, just show up. My strategy was to keep it as visual as possible and get the kids involved. I had to find ways to keep them moving and to channel their energy. Thankfully, I wasn't doing it alone. Everyday Dairy, whose son was friends with my daughter, volunteered to help. She had already finished the 2-year nutrition program at my school, and while I was frazzled trying to pull this off, she was steady and calm. I don't know how I would have gotten through those 2 weeks without her. So each day I came in loaded up with props and sometimes even brought in guest speakers. It was a huge undertaking. To visually teach them about sugar, I brought in snap-on building blocks and built a carbohydrate. One block was a monosaccharide, mono meaning one. 2 blocks made a disaccharide, di meaning 2, and we'd build up from there. It was both tactile and visual. Another day, we looked at how much sugar we're eating each day. I broke the kids into 7 groups, each group representing a day. Each group had a list of foods they typically eat in a day. They had to look at the labels, figure out the teaspoons of sugar for each food, measure that sugar into a cup, and then bring the cup to the front of the room. By the end, the Monday through Sunday cups of sugar were lined up across the table. They could see how much sugar they were eating in a week. And then I'd get dramatic. This is just a week. Here's a month. And I drop huge bags of sugar, bam, 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 on the table and let them know it's about 150 pounds for a year. To explain the physiology, I got one of those human body models where you can pull the organs apart. I showed them the pancreas, the kidneys, and the liver and talked about what each one did. The model was important because most of us, including myself, think of the body as a black box. Digestion somehow just happens, and there's kidneys in there somewhere. But with the model, they could finally see where those organs lived and what they do. We also did something called the Qigong organ pat. I had the kids stand up and pat the areas of their bodies where the organs lived. We'd pat the kidneys, the pancreas, and the liver. Pat, 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 to really bring it home that these organs are in our bodies and to say, hey, organ, I see you, and thank you for your hard work. And then I'd personalize the organs even more. In my PowerPoint, I drew those organs with stick arms and legs, so they became lovable characters. I had a liver, a pancreas, and kidneys with adrenal hats, and I called them the blood sugar control team. Those were the organs responsible for processing sugar and carbohydrates. And once they understood how the team worked, I wanted them to internalize it more. So I brought in a theater game expert. We moved all the tables back and did this game where there was team pancreas, team liver, team kidney, and we acted out the digestion of a carbohydrate. It gave them another way to really embody what they were learning. Another day we had a smoothie lab. I brought in a bunch of blenders and ingredients, and we talked about how to make a healthy smoothie. Then each kid made their own smoothie using healthy ingredients. And on another day, I used food props to talk about the difference between a whole food and a processed food. We'd hold an apple in one hand and applesauce in the other, or a potato in one hand and potato chips in the other. One day, I even created a dramatic rip-away Velcro prop to show how a wheat berry gets turned into flour. By the time it's turned into flour, it's basically pure sugar. But I think their favorite lesson was when we acted out what it's like for the body when we eat a bunch of sugar. I'd say, well, let's pretend you're the body and you have to deal with the sugar coming in. Can I have a volunteer? One of the classmates would come up and I'd say, okay, you're the body, and your job is to take each piece of sugar as it comes in and put it on the table. We'd start off pretending the sugar was coming in slowly. The body could keep up. But then I showed them what it looks like when the sugar comes in fast by dumping a whole box of packing peanuts on the student. The kids loved that. And then to show them what was happening inside the body, I used PowerPoint to make animations that showed how insulin is the key that unlocks the cell so the sugar can get in, as well as animations to show how the organs work together to process sugar. I also taught them the symptoms of low blood sugar, mood swings, headaches, dizziness. It was a big aha for them to realize their mood and their body were connected to what they ate. One kid even said, oh, that's why I had a headache yesterday. I didn't eat. At the end of the 2 weeks, it felt like birthing a baby. You go through all this labor and then you get a prize. And the prize was what they retained. It was shocking what they learned. They knew things most adults didn't. From the very technical, like glucagon is the opposite of insulin, to the simple but powerful, sugar is sugar no matter where you get it from. And too much sugar can kill you, and so can not enough. I was blown away. It was worth the labor. My favorite note, though, was everyone learned a lot, even Rodrigo. But the sobering moment came when this shy, quiet girl came up to me after class and looked up at me and said, I would eat this way all the time, no problem. But my parents are the ones who buy the food, and they don't buy food like this. And I thought, oh, crap. It's not going to do me any good to teach these kids when the parents are the ones buying the food. If the parents didn't learn too, nothing would change. Because if these kids went home saying, yeah, the teacher at school told me orange juice is bad, the parents would just say, who is that wacko? So I decided to take the 2-week course I'd just given the kids and turn it into an hour-long talk for the parents. Then I started giving it at lecture spots all around Santa Cruz, health food stores, wellness centers, anywhere that would host me. Every time I gave that talk, people would ask questions at the end, and I paid close attention to the questions. If they asked about something I thought I'd already explained, that meant I hadn't done a good enough job teaching it. So I'd go back, rework that part of the presentation, and then deliver it again. And I just kept doing that. Teach it, rework it, teach it again, rework it again, until finally I gave the presentation and no one had questions at the end. That's when I knew I'd nailed it. And that's when I decided to get my geeky friends together from my old life and produce a DVD. In the next episode, I'll talk about the birth of Sweet Fire. As we close off episode 9 of Coding Wellness, I want you to think of one food you grew up with that you wish could be healthy so you could eat it again. For me, it's Apple Jacks or Fruit Loops. I can still taste them. If you feel like sharing, let me know yours in the comments on Instagram or Facebook. Thank you for listening to Coding Wellness, created and hosted by me, Mary Toscano. I hope today's episode gave you valuable insights and inspiration for your own path. You can follow Coding Wellness on Instagram and Facebook. Please rate and review the podcast, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. This podcast is meant to be listened to in order. Each episode builds on the last. So if you're just jumping in, I encourage you to go back and start from the beginning. Take care and remember, there is extraordinary potential that lies within all of us. Each one of us has talents and gifts uniquely our own, and a place where we shine the brightest. The more we live from this place, the happier we are. And remember, life, like software, can be debugged, rewritten, and optimized. Bye for now.